Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Megan and I am the owner of Little Inklings Design, and I created the Always Fully Booked 2018 Book Lovers Planner. Today we're going to do a quick flip through of the month of January and how I laid out my planner. But before we get to that, we're going to start with a few of my favorite pens. I've had a couple of you ask on my Instagram which pens I like to use, so I'll just go over just a couple of my favorites. So the first one is the Tombow dual brush pen markers. I only have a couple of colors, but I really like the way they write in the planner. One end has a big brush tip and the other end is just a small felt tip marker. They don't bleed through the paper at all, and I just like them to add a little punch of color to some of the daily pages in the planner. For my everyday use pens, I use the Sharpie Pen. It's my absolute favorite pen to use in the planner. I just really like the way that it glides on the paper and it doesn't bleed through at all. Another one of my favorites for everyday is the Uniball Pen. It's just a standard ballpoint pen. There's nothing fancy about it, but I just like the way that it writes on the paper as well. I also really like the Papermate Flair pens. I believe they come in a pack of 10 or 12 different colors, and as I said, I really like to add a bunch of color to my planner, so I find these work really well. Just a standard felt tip marker pen. My last favorite pens, I really like to use a small brush tip markers. I don't remember the names of all of these because the packaging isn't in English, but I'll find some links and leave them in the description box below. But I really like to use these on the TBR page in the planner. It just adds kind of a fancy little flair of writing, and it's just a small nibbed brush pen. And I just get those at any art supply store. I believe online on Amazon and stuff. Finally, I have a gold gel pen. I don't use this too much, but it's just nice for some accents. And that's just a Uni-ball gel pen. You'll see as I flip through the planner that I do like to use some pencil crayons throughout the book. These are just for small little doodles. This is a pack I got from Chapters for really cheap a couple of years ago. I don't use anything fancy at all. I just grab whatever I have handy around me. Alright, so let's start with the flip through. So the first page is just a standard "if lost, please return to" page. I just used a regular small tip brush pen to do my address there. Next is the 2018 overview page. I don't use this very often unless I'm referencing a date, but I did mark my anniversary. Next we have the dates to remember page, where I've just listed a couple of birthdays and anniversaries. I haven't listed all of them yet, but I'm getting to it. And next we have the TV shows to binge and must-see movies. I just hand-lettered a couple of logos of shows that I'm currently watching or seasons that I want to catch later in the year when they come out. I just freehanded them. I didn't do anything crazy. They're not perfect, but they work. And I did the same thing with the movies. I just did a couple of logos, like for the Avengers and for Crimes of Grindelwald. I have seen some people who like to list the movies in each section. You can do whatever works for you. This is just what works for me. But let me know if there's any shows or TV shows you think I should check out and add to my list. Next we have the 2018 goals. I did some hand lettering here using a variety of different pens. I tried to use some different styles. I didn't plan it out really, but I just kind of went with what I intended. I also made a couple of lists because I tend to have a lot of goals for 2018. But yeah, I liked to add a lot of color to the page, and I really like how this one turned out. Next we have the books read in 2018 bookshelf. Obviously I haven't read that many books this year. I only used this to keep track of my fantasy and sci-fi reads, so there's only 3 there. I have read more books this month, but I tend to read a lot of books in the year, and I didn't think I'd be able to fit them all if I tracked all of them. So it's just fantasy, but yeah, I write the titles and then color them in. Alternatively, you could use it as a TBR page and just write the titles and color them in when you finish them. After the January title page and quote page, we have the TBR page. This is where I use these small brush tip markers and just letter the author's name, and then also add the title of the book. Obviously I didn't get to all of those books this month, but it was a lofty goal. Next we have the new releases. I color code these. I use the purple and blue markers to do fantasy reads and the pink to keep track of all contemporary romances. Moving into the monthly overview, I don't use this too much, but I did want to mention about the Bookstagram photo prompts section. I don't do a monthly challenge, so I don't use it that way, but I do list which photos I'm posting on which days and which products were included in that photo. That way I can keep track of if I need to post a particular product on a particular day. So you don't have to use the planner exactly how it's laid out. You can use it in however works best for you. Moving into the weekly view, I just wanted to touch base on a couple of different ways I lay out this. I don't use it the same way every week, it just depends. If I don't have anything a particular day, I typically do a doodle or just a little design just to keep things fun and interesting. This is where I use the pencil crayon, so as you can see in the Happy New Year and the quote on the 6th and the 7th. I also use this to keep track of any special memories that I want to remember at a later date. Like on the 3rd, my husband had surprised me with a book, so I wanted to remember that, so I wrote it down. I also typically use it in a standard way where I just plan out things I need to do that day. I make lists, I doodle, I just do whatever works for that particular day. I won't linger on all the pages, but I just wanted to show you kind of how I use it. On the 17th, I started a gathering of shadows for V.E. Schwab, so I just used some pencil crayon and marked some of my favorite phrases from the series, just as a little nod to me starting the book that day. On Friday, I hit 15,000 followers on Instagram, and I wanted to remember it happened that day. I also really like to use the Tombow brush pens for important things that I need to remember because they really stick out. I also tend to make some to-do lists, things that I can check off through the day. It's just a nice way for me to keep track of everything I need to do that particular day. As I said, you can use it a variety of different ways. You can use it to keep track of dinners, you can keep track of fitness, you can keep track of the pages that you've read that particular day. It's laid out so that it's pretty blank, so you can use it however works for your particular needs. Moving into the book reviews, as I said, I only use this to keep track of my fantasy reads, so that's all the books that I have in my review sections. I just write a brief little blurb of what I thought. I don't write a full review, I do that later on my computer, but I do use the thoughts section just as a immediate reaction to finishing the book and just what I thought, so I can expand on it later when I do write the full review. For the star review, I just use a yellow Papermate Flair pen to color in the stars, and then I write the actual number beside the rating if it was less than 5 stars. Moving into the monthly wrap-up, in the books read section, I do list all books I've read, not just fantasy. This is just a way for me to keep track of which books I'm reading, and at the end of the year I can tally how many books I actually read. The books purchase section, that's pretty standard. I list the date and the book that I got and where it was from. I wasn't supposed to buy any books this month, but that obviously didn't happen. And then in the favorite quotes section, I just had one this month that really stuck with me from a gathering of shadows, so I just used a small brush tip pen to write that out. And that is the end of January, and we can move into February. I just recently started compiling my TBR for February, so there's not too much here, but I did it the same way that I did the January month. But that is everything so far, so I hope you enjoyed a look through my month of January.